morning again. Are we in for a pre-election rally? History tells us that markets in the run-up to the election, they have rallied. Will 2024 be different?
It could be different because of the fact that we have already had a decent side run up. So if you look at, I think 1 month prior to elections is one thing, but I think starting right from October till now, so if we analyze that, so the markets have had a sharp run up. And globally also markets are looking a bit jittery with inflation being sticky and there being possibilities of a global correction. So I would think that the possibility of some correction is higher. Now that thesis could actually play out if markets actually correct from here till April and then rally somewhat in May. So that's tough to predict.
Now, Sandeep, in next 30 days, next 45 days, we will hear a lot from government in terms of policy, Viksit Bharat ka vision, extension to big schemes, continuation of the policy momentum. The focus could be defense, railways, solar, EVs. Could that get market excited? And the sell-off in PSUs and sell-off in some of the manufacturing names, what we've seen, do you think that those stocks could regain their mojo largely because of the policy communication which will come from government?
So I think the policy, if the same government is coming back, would remain more or less the same because the focus they have shown, especially on the manufacturing side and getting most things manufactured in India, and now this high-end EV policy also. So I think the aim is to get as many global companies as well as Indian corporations to manufacture in India, and that's an established theme now. So I don't think there's anything new which will go through there. On the PSU side, we've had a rally which has taken every PSU up, irrespective of whether they're doing well or not well, whether they're loss making, profit making. I think post the corrective phase, we could see more distinction between the companies which do have fundamentals playing for them, which could include mostly, I think, a lot of defense names versus the others.
An interesting note as well on the entire auto ancillary space from Kotak Securities, saying that there's a visible silver lining that is seen in some of these stocks, and that for select companies, the risk reward is looking rather favorable. In light, Sandeep, of the EV shift, the premiumization trend, how are you looking at the growth story within this space?
I think some of the auto ancillary companies obviously see one is that there's only that much demand which will happen within the country. So I think the shifts will happen from petrol diesel vehicles to EVs, etc. But the growth will remain at the trend growth rate of between 6 to 10% or 12% in very good years. So that's one thing. So demand from one segment comes down, from the other segment increases. So there'll be some companies which could benefit out of that. So I think that's something which could be played for. Then there are companies which are supplying globally to companies, and as the EV shift happens, the same companies might not be benefiting. That a different set of companies could be benefiting. So I think that's an analysis that needs to be done. But there'll be some stories for sure.
55 seconds to go, and then we'll get the pre-open rates. If global cues are anything to go by, you would imagine that things are going to be stable. You remain stable for next couple of days, and everyone would say it's a victory for the bulls. Rarely I have seen when such a savage correction kicks in, there is more relief after the correction. Sandeep, when a correction comes in, nobody likes it. Everybody loses wealth. Your NAVs, optically, they start coming down. But for the first time, I've seen that when this correction has kicked in last 15 days or in last 21 days, there is a bit of a relief. Everyone is saying, thank God, this euphoria is not becoming a bubble.
Yeah, that's true to some extent. So, and I think that's also important for the fraud to go out because there was too much speculation happening in too many segments. And although optically the index has hardly fallen, so I think when we talk of the correction on the large cap side, the index, if you see, there's hardly any fall. I think 2% off the top. but the real pain has been on the small caps and to some extent on mid caps. And I would think that valuations in that segment are still somewhat higher. I don't think the entire correction should be over as of now.
Fair enough. Meantime, there's also, the outlook then, Sandeep, that I would like to get in from you as to how you're looking at the entire retail space in terms of the performance of a Trent and Aditya Birla Fashion, given that there has been a stark dichotomy in the way both of these stocks have moved.
Yeah, so I think there's been a stark dichotomy between what Trent has done and what the rest of the market has done, or rest of the businesses in this segment have done. So I think and that has stood out, and that's also reflected in the valuations. Now the key is that whether we see a revival in retail demand, and a lot of the demand for these companies, a lot of the sales are apparel based. So we've had couple of years of low demand in this segment, driven by higher inflation and the spike up in prices. I would think that this year we should start seeing recovery. That's what I would bet on. So I think stocks like Aditya Birla Retail and all, despite their flawed acquisition strategies, which has strained their balance sheet, I would think at these prices it looks attractively placed.
Pre-open rates, you just want to look at the pre-open rates, nothing very exciting, nothing very extraordinary. Well, the pain point in the market really has been PSUs. The pain point in the market really has been a lot of those two-digit stocks. The pain point in the market really has been a lot of so-called defense and the entire railway basket. Surprisingly, Sandeep, when markets reverse, fintech stocks and consumer tech stocks are the first one to correct, because that's the valuations are slightly stretched by all stretch of imagination. But in this fall of Policy Bazaar or a delivery, or for that matter Zomato, they've hardly corrected.
Yeah, they haven't fallen at all. And in fact, in a stock like Zomato, we've seen so many sales of earlier investors which has got absorbed so easily without much discount to the market price. And I think it's reflective of the kind of turnaround that Zomato's been able to show in terms of fundamental performance over the last 2-3 quarters. So I think if that trend continues and profitability improvement continues at this pace, there's very high likelihood the stock could sustain and even move higher. Policy Bazaar as a business model, I don't think it's a very sustainable business model long term, because competitive intensity is high, and so I think they have also seen some sporadic improvements in profitability. Let's see whether that sustains.
Sandeep, very quickly, before you go, anything that you bought in the carnage last week or still sitting on cash?
So I think still sitting on 12 to 15% kind of cash, waiting to see where the entire dust settles. Because we've had a correction, but I think there could be some more way to go.
More way, 5%, 10%, 15%, what is that some more way?
On the mid and small caps, around 10% at the index level. On the large cap indices, possibly 5-6%.
Bottom line, Sandeep, is that bull market is not over. Bottom line is that this is like a cyclical downturn in a structural bull market. Bottom line here is that you should be buying the fall. Now, depending on your judgment call, you buy 10% lower, 15% lower, or 20% lower, or you can even buy today. But it's barring that tactical shifts which you may do in your portfolio, one should still aim to be fully invested in this market.
Yeah, so for whoever is owning stocks, it makes no sense to try to sell them to buy them 10-15% cheaper, because like you said, this is a bull market and this is correction in a bull market. If you were sitting on the sidelines and you had cash and you want to deploy that cash, then maybe for that you might get better prices over the next few weeks.
Some significant correction that Sandeep still foresees even after what's played out last week. But Sandeep, good to have you on the show as always. We'll chat again later this week soon.
If you like this video, then like, share and subscribe to ET Now.